So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can very easily move away from bolt.new or lovable.dev, and I highly recommend knowing when it's time to move away from either of those platforms or any other AI code gen like these tools. Knowing when it's time to move over from one of those tools and into something like Windsurf, Cursor, GitHub Copilot, any of those kind of VS code platforms where you can really get into the code and do the things that you need to do, or if you just want to bring the project over to another developer beyond yourself. So the good thing is that it's very easy to do no matter what platform you're on. The main thing is that the platform connects to GitHub, which most of them do, because when you're going to deploy your site, you need to send it over to GitHub and then put it onto Netlify or Versal or any of those programs. So once you know that you're done and you don't need to return to Bolt or Lovable, you're just going to click Open in Stack Blitz. And this is going to give you the option to create a repository. If you've not already connected to GitHub, it's going to give you the option to log in, but as my one is already connected, it's popped up with this, which is my GitHub account, and then I get to name the repository. So I've already done it, but let's just do Sign Circle 2 or Cine Circle 2, and then you have the option to make it private or public, create repository. And that's it. That's all you do in bolt.new. Now it's going to create the repository in GitHub, which it has done here. You can see Cine Circle 2 and all of the files. And these files are what you're going to be editing in Windsurf. Now on Lovable, it's pretty much the same thing. Very simple. You're just going to hit edit code. And then instead of transferring to Stack Blitz or anything like that, you're just going to hit transfer repository. And if your GitHub account is already connected, it's going to show up here, or you can add another organization. So that's it. So I can create the repository. It says a GitHub repository is now under your account, and it's created it for me. So the only difference was one allowed me to name the repository, the other just went along with what the name of the project was. Now all you want to do is head over to Explorer, and then you're going to clone the repository. Now if you downloaded the folder in Stack Blitz, then you can just open that up, but for most people you're just going to want to connect to the GitHub repository, so when you make updates you can push them over with no issues. So I've clicked clone repository, and then we're going to go and clone from GitHub. And again, if your GitHub is already connected, it's just going to show up with a list of your different files. If it's not connected, it's going to ask you to connect. So here you can see I've got the one with Stack Blitz, so the Cine Circle, and then the other one from lovable.dev, which is Cosmic Knowledge Map. When I click on one of these, it's going to ask me where I want to save the repository. So let me just go ahead and click Cine Circle. You can see I've got this one here. I'm going to get it to save right here, so select as repository destination. It's cloning it, and now it wants to open a new Windsurf window with that. So there we have it. We've got Cine Circle 2, we've got all the files, everything is exactly the same. But now you're probably looking at it and thinking, okay, what do I do? Because in Bolt, I'm used to seeing the entire build and I get to play with it, and that's the main thing. I can see it, and this thing doesn't look very friendly. I don't want to be dealing with the code and the files and breaking things, and that's completely understandable. Well, what you need to do is talk to this section here, Cascade. Cascade is going to do everything for you. So initially you want to go to npm run dev, and it might not run because it might need to install specific files, and if it can't, it's just going to tell you that it needs to install those files. So as you can see, it's trying to run the command in your terminal. It's saying the command is not found, so it's again finding the issue, which is Next.js is not installed. So it does that for you. You just hit that and it runs all the commands in the virtual terminal. So once it's installed all of these, we'll be able to use the command npm run dev. And again, you don't have to write that command. You can tell it to run it and it will do it for you. So accept. Says one of my ports are in use, so it's going to find another port for me. 3001. So I'm going to go to localhost 3001. So I'll just paste that in there. And it opens it up for me. So this is the same thing that you would see in bolt.new or Lovable. Now it's on your local server. So now, just as you would in bolt.new or lovable.dev, everything you edit in Windsurf is going to reflect on the side. So if I say, let's change the title from Cine Circle to Netflix Remix, and change the font to make it more engaging, we're going to see it make these updates in real time. So Netflix Remix, it's just done that. I think it's doing some other things to the layout. Not sure. Now let's add the Netflix font to your project. First, I'll create the new CSS file for the custom font. Now let's import the font CSS file in your main layout, and so on and so forth. So as you can see, everything is updated in real time. Now there are a few things you do need to be aware of. Now I've mentioned this before. When you import your document, it's very important that you have a changelog and a roadmap.md. So it's very important that you already have these created in your project beforehand. So when you import this new document to a new IDE, you can tell it to refer to that document so you don't have to waste time with it making assumptions. Now, Windsurf does actually have this workspace rules file. Again, I've mentioned this in another video, and you can add to these rules and it's going to refer to these rules with everything it does. Another thing is we're currently operating on the main branch, and this could mean if you make any mistakes or do any changes that you don't want, this is all going to be reflected on your main branch. And if you don't want that and you're just doing something experimental, you can tell Windsurf to create a new experimental branch. So let's create a new branch for the new features. And it's going to add this new branch, it's going to give it a name, and it's going to switch to it. So we're going to see this change down the bottom here. It's just communicating with GitHub. And then we're going to, there we go, we've switched to the new branch. So feature, Netflix, remix branding. So very, very simple. Everything that we need to do, everything we need to say to the terminal, we can do within this chat box here. So it will not only manage all of our documents for our file, but it's going to manage all of the GitHub pushes and pulls. So likewise, if I've tested everything on this branch I'm on, I've already got an instance of my site deployed. So I've got it on Netlify. Netlify is picking up on this main branch, and I'm ready to make an update. I can say push these new changes to the main branch, and this is going to get sent right over to the GitHub main branch, and then it's going to be updated again in real time on my site. So providing there's no deployment issues, it will go straight to Netlify and be deployed. So very, very simple process. Once you've taken it out of bolt.new or lovable.dev, I can't think of many reasons why you'd need to send it back over to them. So once you've got it in Windsurf and you've played around with it, you'll realize that there's so much more you can do on the back end. One thing I did forget to mention was connecting to Superbase. Now, again, this is a very, very basic project, but if you do have Superbase connected to your project, it's very important that you set it up right in Windsurf. So what I've noticed is trying to do the migrations yourself, adding the SQL migration content to your Superbase account yourself, that's not the way to go. The best way is to head over to this section here and click connect. It's going to give you the Postgres string. All you need to do is make sure you've got your database password, paste that string into this chat section here and tell it to connect to Superbase, and then all the changes it does, all the migrations, it's going to handle all of that in the same way it does in Lovable and bolt.new with their new Superbase integration. So that's it. I hope you found that useful. If you did, drop a comment, like, and subscribe.